academic. It's not to say that they don't also do a lot of hardcore meditation and other kinds of practice, but that particular strand is really heavy on the memorizing stuff, but it's just a different, it's like I said, different strokes for different folks. It's just one method that suits some people. So sometimes it can feel like that, but the idea is to try to extract what's useful and then put it into practice, whatever we can. So hopefully we can all do that. One person's in the bathroom, so we'll just wait. Does anybody have anything they want to say or ask or talk about?
Doing this.
Oh, thanks for coming.
So
it's really
awesome.
Thank you guys. It's really nice. It would be lonely just by myself with you.
It would be very difficult to actually find out about a lot of this stuff without something like this here.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Yeah. Maybe just a few housekeeping things while we have some downtime. So there are homeworks and quizzes, and those of you who want to really, one of the things that I find really brilliant about the way this is compiled is that it's totally got our number as Westerners. This is how we learn in school, right? We learn the material, we have a reading, then we do some homework, and then we come back and have a quiz. But you wind up learning stuff that way. So if you want to do that and get credit for the course, enlightenment credit, do that. And then I was thinking, if we want to do it, I think it helps to maintain like a little bit of seriousness about that, just because we want to internalize it, right? So maybe somebody might volunteer to grade homeworks, and we can keep it going. And it's also a nice way to support each other in learning. I hope, and it seems like it's already starting to gel that way, but that we form a little community, and maybe it'll grow, and we get to know each other, and because it's like deep and vulnerable stuff that we're doing in a certain way, so it's nice to feel connected to the people around you and to support each other, right? That's what it's all about. And anyway, we'll talk more about it towards the end of the class. I think we can go. Are you already going? All right. Let's go right to the second path. All right? Because we're in the three principal paths, which is a letter from who to who. Anybody remember?
Jason Kappa.
Right. To his student. Nalam Drakpa. Right. The second one, the Tibetan is Jangsem, and this one you get two foreign words for the price of one. Jangsem, Jangsem. Jang is Buddhahood, and Sem is mind. Now you get a Sanskrit word because I don't know, in this tradition, the Sanskrit word is kind of like the catchphrase for this, but I'll tell you about what it means too. The Sanskrit word is bodhicitta. Bodhi, B-O-D-H-I, citta, C-I-T-T-A, and the C is like the Italian C. And same thing, Bodhi translates as awakening. So Buddha just means somebody who has awakened, somebody who woke up from suffering and came out of it. Chitta means mind. So one might think, and some incorrect translations call it the mind of enlightenment. This is just a technicality, and you might not care, but I feel like it's worth pointing out. That's incorrect. What it is, what it really means is sorry if you can't read my writing. It's the wish for enlightenment. Okay, this is the second what? What are we talking about? The three paths, which are realizations. This is the second sort of spiritual milestone that we need to have on our journey to awakening. So let's just recap. You can't go anywhere if you don't renounce the condition of suffering, right? Or else you're just in it. So renunciation is your first step. It's saying, I want something else. I'm going to turn away from all this crap and seek something else. Renunciation is the wish for enlightenment, and I should add, for the sake of all beings. For the sake of all beings, which is a key element. So you can't leave that part out. So anybody ever heard the term bodhisattva? A bodhisattva, all that means is somebody who has bodhicitta. Somebody who, and we'll talk a little bit about more what it means in depth, but somebody who has the wish to become a Buddha, has the wish to reach full enlightenment or an awakening out of a sense of compassion. So, if renunciation is a sense of, I'm in trouble here and I want to get out of it, okay, we can talk about bodhicitta as, whoa, everybody's in this situation. Everybody is suffering. There is nothing but suffering around me. Every living being, from ants to humans to everything with a mind, is trying to fulfill their own well-being and not able to, and keeps meeting with obstacles. Everybody around me is suffering. That is so horrible. And this yearning wells up in your heart that says, I want to do something for them. It'd be well and good if I could just get myself out, but then what? Everybody around me is just miserable and suffering all the time, and I'm just blissed out. What kind of life would that be? I need to do this for everybody. It can't, no being left behind. I can't just go by myself. In fact, my motivation for awakening is for the sake of everybody. Right? It's not just my own, it's not just looking out for numero uno, right? But that on behalf of anybody that suffers, of everybody that suffers, I will achieve the highest evolution so that I can best serve them. Because right now we're all in the water drowning. It's like we're all in the water drowning. And no matter how much we want to yank the person next to us out, what good are we if we're in the same swamp? You know what I mean? You can't lift them out. You first need to find out how to get out, and then you can come back and help other people along, right? How can we really do it? And of course, we have to help people. Part of the development of bodhicitta and of moving towards enlightenment is, of course, serving other people and helping other people, and we need to do that. That's an essential part. But we can't. It'd be like, we can't help other people reach enlightenment, and if we're not, So, and my teacher, one of my teachers, Lama Marut, used to say, it's like somebody who needs brain surgery, and you come along and say, well, I don't have any training, but I'd really like to help you. Can I just take a go at it? Can I just operate? No, right? You need to go to school for that and have a lot of experience. Anyway, bodhicitta, the wish for enlightenment. Okay. And an essential part of being a Buddha. Any questions about that? So it's a compassionate motivation. A kind of prerequisite to bodhicitta is a kind of compassion. And in the subsequent classes, we'll talk more about bodhicitta and how it's developed. Because that's another great thing about this stuff. It's like, it's not just you either got it or you don't. The whole point, the whole essence of what we're saying is every one of us, every single one of us has the capacity. If you're in this room, you have the capacity to do it. You just need to do it. You need to do the stuff. You need to do the practice, right? It's not just like, it's not like we just have to bow to this other guy who did it and we'll never do it. So we'll just go to this place because, it's not we're not helpless. We all have what's called Buddha nature, which is the capacity to become a Buddha ourselves. All right. Yang Dak. This is the third path. Yang, like yin yang, Y-A-N-G, Dakpay, D-A-K-P-A-Y, Tawa, T-A-W.
Yeah, I can't.
It's up here. Y-A-N-G, D-A-K-P-A-Y, and the new word T-A-W-A. It's not the end of the world if you don't get the Tibetan. I'll give you a website that has all of these resources, the notes, the readings, the homeworks, so you can go and revisit it. Also, we're recording this, we're streaming it live, but we're also going to record it so you can either go back and watch, or if you can't make a class, I shouldn't have told you that actually. No, you have to come to every class. But if you I know a lot of people can't make all of them, but it's going to be there so that everybody can do it. Yang Dakpe Tawa. Yang Dakpe Tawa is the third path, and this is correct view. Sounds very absolute, doesn't it? Correct view. What does that mean? Let's unpack that one a little. Back in our explanation of the Buddha's first sermon or discourse, which is more commonly translated as what they call the Four Noble Truths, but my teachers have said that's incorrect, and so in this lineage we call it the Four Arya Truths. That first set of teachings, those four things: life is suffering, suffering's cause, there's an end to suffering, and there's a path. Four Noble Truths, sometimes called, but really the Four Arya Truths, and we'll talk about why maybe tonight, but probably not. But anyway, remember how we said in the second one, suffering has a cause. Anybody remember one of the things we said? The main thing we said? Ignorance. Which normally we think of as like, oh, I have some something that I don't know, right? Which is true. It's not untrue when we think of ignorance, something that we don't know, but it's not necessarily an acquisition of something else, but actually that we see things wrongly, and we'll talk about what that means, and think that it's right. In fact, we're convicted, 100% convicted that we're right most of the time. And, in some ways, maybe not so much, but there are different levels of what correct view might be. So let's start out simple. Maybe some of you have had this experience where you're in a situation, you want a certain outcome, and it appears that if you omit a truth, or if you skew the truth, it will make that outcome that you want happen, apparently, right? Yang Dakpe Tawa said, that is exactly the problem. By making a correlation between a negative thing and a positive result. Okay? According to Buddhist teachings, and really, I would venture to say all correct spiritual teachings, not limited to Buddhism, you can't get figs from thistles. Anybody ever hear that? Or that's just one way of saying it, right? You cannot get a good, it seems childish, but we all are believing it all the time, right? I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that I don't fall into thinking. That's just one example, okay? But for instance, another one, somebody's yelling at you and saying something insulting to you. What is our instinct? I'm just going to yell louder, I'm going to insult you back worse. So you stop, and so that you know that you're wrong and I'm right? Exact wrong, opposite thing to do. Okay? Why is that so confusing? Why are we stuck in that way of thinking? Why is that always perpetuated? Because it seems like it works sometimes. That's why it's so hard to get out of samsara. Because there's something that's an illusion to us. It appears to be one way, but upon analysis, upon meditation, upon study and contemplation and experiencing it, we realize that it's wrong. But our default position is to just carry out the wrongness over and over. In fact, it's embedded into the way we view reality according to Buddhism. So let's stick on this for a while, because this is really important. This is kind of like the key that unlocks everything. You can't actually get to enlightenment without all three, but this is really the big one. And when I said that certain realizations stay, when you realize the correct view to the deepest level, which we'll talk about more later, but when you realize it to a deeper level, that's a path, that's a realization that can't be undone. When you have the correct view, and we'll talk about what it is, but to the deepest level, when you have understanding to the deepest level, you can no longer turn back on your spiritual trajectory. You are on a rocket ship to enlightenment, and you're not gonna suffer. You're not gonna keep suffering. You know, like remember before we talked about rebirth and all of that. But that's a long story. So I like pictures. Sometimes this is helpful to me, and sorry if it feels like an oversimplification, but sometimes I think about it like this. My markers aren't working so well. Maybe this is another sign that I shouldn't do the illustration. Anyway, here's like let's think of it like this is a ground, this is a field or a garden, okay? And here we have, it stinks. Samsara. Markers run out, it's just everywhere. Yeah, karma. Here's lying, and we'll call this like, I planted a seed of lying, okay? And this is time. This is time. So going left to right is time. Here is, let's say, money. I receive money, right? Normally the way we think of reality of working as moment one connects immediately to moment two. Lying brought about money. What we don't get is, back here somewhere is, let's say, I'll write it down, sorry, this is a bad illustration. Giving, okay, to somebody else. So the way the correct view of reality is, according to Buddhism, is that there is no correlation between the lying in one moment, in moment A, let's say, and the pleasant thing, whether it be money or some result that you want in moment B, but that there cannot be a connection. That there is only a correlation between a positive thing, a positive action that we've done, and a positive result. So the giving is what correlates to whatever. I'm just using money as an example, but as pleasant result here, as honesty, as virtue in the past, as some kindness to somebody else, as some respect to somebody else, as some compassion to somebody else, later produces this. But there's a gap in between cause and effect. Just like when you plant your tomato seeds at the beginning of the summer, right? You don't go out the next morning and say, where are my big, fat, juicy tomatoes? We're all clear that those seeds need to be fertilized, they need to be watered, they need sun, and only after time does the fruit come. It's really no different what they say with what they call karma, right? We're talking about cause and effect in a broader sense. And this actually isn't unique to Buddhism. We already talked, right? You can't get fig from thistles, or lots of other traditions, Eastern and Western traditions talk about this. So anyway, what we're stuck in all the time is thinking that one correlates to the other. We draw the wrong correlation. We connect the wrong dots. So that's just like a one level of it, more superficial. Let's talk about maybe a slightly deeper level, and it'll just be like a teaser for next time or for later on in the course. a deeper level of mistaking things, right? Saying they appear, or having them appear one way, but there being a disparity between how they appear and how they actually are, goes deeper than just that, than just saying what I do in this moment might not necessarily affect the immediate moment after, but far in the future. Right? That's what we said is the correct view. But also the very way that things appear to us to exist is a mistake that we're making. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about it. So we have this pen, right? And some of you have heard this explanation before, so just bear with it. But it appears to be a pen to all of us, right? Like unmistakably. Like I could just hold this up, and it's not. Nobody has to sit there and really think hard about what it is. It's like automatically in the mind, almost as if this is happening, right? Like I'm a pen. I'm a pen. I'm a pen. Like it's broadcasting its existence out like a radio frequency, right? Normally, I mean, right? I'm not too far. Even in science class, I remember them saying, like, this is how we see objects. You have the object out here, and then something bounces off of it and comes in, and then you see what the object is out there. Anyway, it seems like it has some nature in and of itself, some penness, some I am a pen-ness about it, that it's broadcasting out to the world. Okay? That is one of the things that these teachings say is a mistake, a fundamental mistake. What's the proof of that? What happens if you bring a dog in here? Does the dog have the same experience of the pen? Is it a pen for the dog? If it were a pen from its own side, objectively, inherently, without question, by definition, wouldn't the dog have to say, I've been looking for a good pen, you know, let me just write something with it, right? It sounds funny because it's so simple, we say, oh, of course, but some part of our mind, if we're honest with ourselves, is saying, stupid dog, it's a pen, right? When the dog chews on it, we say, don't do that, that's a perfectly good pen, you ruined it. But really, right, the dog has a mind perceiving something, and for it doesn't exist as a pen at all. In fact, you're ruining a perfectly good chew toy by waving it around. Give me that thing, right? If we were to say, it is not a chew toy, by some nature, by some molecule within this thing, could the dog chew on it? How could it function as a chew toy if it were not a chew toy, by definition, by its nature, by its essence, from its own side, objectively, essentially? You guys see where I'm going with this? Right? What is this telling us about reality? Is the pen coming this way, out from it, or does it have to be coming this way, from the mind of the beholder onto it, right? We see some indication of pen. We see expo, we see some color here, a little rectangular part, we see some reflection, some roundness, the cap, whatever. All of those indicators, right, we see that, and then our mind says, that data looks good enough to be a pen. That's a pen, right? Whereas the dog does the same thing. It's round, it's long. I mean, maybe they're not thinking like this in words or whatever, right? But something about their mind locks onto it and says, that's something I can chew on. And it works and it functions. Therefore, it is a chew toy. For who? For the dog, right? So what is it really? Which is it really? Neither. Neither from its own side. Or we could say both dependently arising. And if you've heard, okay, I'm going maybe deeper than I wanted to go tonight, but we're here. If you've heard the term dependent origination, this is what it means in Buddhism. And there are different levels of explaining what dependent origination is. It's two sides of the same coin for thinking about reality. Things arise only in dependence upon other things, is how they do exist. Okay, that's the positive side. How they don't exist is from their own side, independently, as an objective, isolated, disconnected thing. Right? Things only arise in dependence upon other things. We'll talk more about the depth of that meaning later. So one question we didn't answer, why? why do we see it as a pen and not a chew toy, and the dog sees it as a chew toy and not a pen?
How we use it.
Right.
How we use it.
Right. How but there's an even different thing I'm getting at, which is why. Maybe the deeper question is, why is the dog a dog? What makes the dog a dog? And the dog is seeing chew toy, right? The dog's perception. So if it's true of the pen, it has to be true of every single thing, right? Everything that we experience, rather than being like a movie set, how we normally think of it, we wake up in the morning, we go out, and everything is there, coming at us. Boom, it's there. And when it really matters is in the case of, this is a bad situation, this is an irritating person. Let's do this with an irritating person now, okay? Same exercise, but now this is an irritating person. How does it seem? Whatever they're doing, right? They're doing that thing. And it really feels, it's much harder to get with the irritating person example, especially if, bless you, especially if you're really in that situation. They're doing that thing, and it's almost like you can feel it. Like radiation, right? It blasts you in the face and infiltrates you, and it's just like, and you feel awful and you get angry. And what do you say to yourself? Internally, the equation is, you made me angry. You made me, right? What are we doing? We're empowering that thing that is actually a perception, just like the pen, and saying, instead, that it, from its own side, has this irritatingness coming at us, not from us, right, objectively. My teacher used to say this funny thing. He used to say, everybody says, I have an irritating person that everybody would think is irritating, right? As if we could all get on a bus and go on a field trip and just like drive by and be like, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's really bad. No, but no. What's the proof of it? What's the proof that it's not coming from its own side? That person has loved ones. Right? They go home and other people just adore them. Or, that person, say it's at work. They're yelling at you, they're criticizing you, they're putting you down. Somebody who doesn't like you might be like, justice, finally. Yes, that's good. And be experiencing it as pleasant. Meanwhile, you're over there like, poor you. Oh man, this is so bad. It's what they call empty in Buddhism. Empty meaning it doesn't have that quality from its own side. It's not coming this way. It's not coming out of the pen, right, or out of the irritating person, but it's a perception arising in our own mind that we're sort of pasting or projecting outward, right? And that's what we experience. So, what is the relevance of any of this, right? Because we're putting the responsibility on everything outside of us. Okay, and I didn't get to the punchline of this yet. One important thing, and then I think we should start our wind down. But why do we experience the things the way we experience them? Why do we see an irritating person when somebody else sees something else? If the thing itself is actually blank or empty, if it doesn't have one quality one way or the other, and it's in the mind of the perceiver, then why do we see the irritating person? Let me ask you another question before you try to answer that. Have you ever tried just like a 4-year-old, like squinting and saying, you're not irritating, I like you, or this is good, right? It doesn't work. It's impossible. Or try to say, this isn't a pen, right? This is like gold, or this is $1 million. No, it doesn't work. We're forced. Our perception is forced, okay? We have no choice in it. How do we change it? Or let's go back. Why do we see it that way? And that goes back to this thing. It's said that how we think or speak or act at one moment in time colors our perception later. It's like planting a seed, right? So, if we're experiencing some kind of yelling or nastiness here at this point in time, right? And it seemed like, let's say, we just gave that person a gift and instead they appear really ungrateful and nasty and whatever. Are the two things related based on the little illustration? Does nasty person come from being kind, from giving them a gift, according to this idea? Yes or no?
No.
No, right? It had to have come from what?
Something like that.
Nastiness that we did maybe back here. Everything we think or say or do, and this is the Buddhist idea of things. I'm not saying believe it, right? Don't believe it. Chew on it. Meditate on it. And there is a meditation assignment as part of the homework, by the way. But it said that we can't experience anything that we haven't put the causes into place for. And this is a tough one, and it brings up all kinds of stuff, and we're not going to get into the whole can of worms tonight. But the idea is that we experience maybe that irritating person or whatever it is, whatever the thing that's in front of us, because of something that we have thought or said or done, how we've conditioned our own mind. And then that's like a pair of glasses, right? If the world is coming from us, it's like whatever's on your glasses, whatever color your glasses are, has been put there by you. Okay? Now that might seem miserable, that might seem really awful, and I'm sure that within some people, and probably it's good if you feel like lots of objection to that. But here's the real cash-in of this idea, right? Because this is we're talking about the third principal path. Somebody, Jason Kappa, the Buddha, is saying, hey, you got to get this if you want to really be out of suffering. Why? How are we supposed to get out of suffering if we're going around all the time saying, the world is not perfect? How am I supposed to be happy if everything is so bad, right? Like, this person's mean, and I can't get the promotion, or whatever it is, like, and all the ways that we suffer. But what are we doing? We're expecting it to just come at us in a perfect way without doing anything. That it's out there, and it should just... But what do we try to do? My teacher used to say robo-claws, like those little things you get the stuffed animal, like we're trying to manipulate the reality in an incorrect way, right? By trying to overpower, by trying to manipulate, by maybe even in some cases lying, or, trying to adjust the reality in a way that's faulty, okay? So if we want to really be happy, if we really want to shift our experience, we will never, ever, ever, ever do it by waiting for the outer reality to change someday, or by trying to manipulate it in a wrong way, right? By trying to overpower it or mess with it in the hard concrete. We can only shift our experience through shifting ourselves, right? And then the lens that we gaze through starts to change, because it's coming this way. So that's the good news. If it's not out there, if it's not bad out there, we should all be like having a sigh of relief, because that means there's something I can do about it. There's something you can do about it. And it's not stuck that way. Nothing is fixed. That's the good news about reality. But as long as we're stuck in thinking about it the wrong way, we're going to keep making the mistakes, right? We're going to keep doing the things that bring about more yelling people, more yelling people, more yelling people. So, rather than just leave you hanging, I'll give you a little practical thing. What's the best thing that we can do when somebody's getting in our face like that? When we're meeting with difficulty or maybe even nastiness or something that even seems unjust? What do we do?
Do something kind, be kind to them.
Right. I mean, that's going to be pretty hard. So, bless you if you can do that. I'd say the first step is don't do harm back.
I had something where somebody was accusing me of something just recently, and I came back with, that's okay.
Yeah.
If that's the way you see me, that's okay.
Right.
It's not who I am. That's the way they see me.
Right. Exactly.
And just walked away from it.
Perfect.
One of the first times I've ever been able to do that in my life.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that goes back to the beginning. That's what refuge is. When we say the refuge prayer in the beginning, refuge, real protection. We usually don't use that word in regular speech, right? Refuge. But real protection from suffering is realizing this, right? It's a path. It's something that clicks in our mind, and then changing our behavior because we've had some kind of realization, saying, you know what? I really, really want to scream at this person right now. I actually want to hit them right now. But I know that actually would just lead to more suffering, so I'm not going to do it, right? And there, you've thrown a monkey wrench into samsara. You have checked off of your list one more suffering result in the future that now you won't get. So good for you. And Jason Kappa in another teaching said, don't beat yourself up. If you restrain yourself from holding back, even for a split second, and then you let it rip, that little moment of restraint is a victory. Because someday that's going to grow. Someday that's going to grow to where you don't do it anymore. And then eventually you can do what Kelly said, which is once you really have strengthened this ability, you can actually be compassionate in that moment. You can actually love back, love your enemy, right? It's hard to do, but you can actually do that. So
thoughts count too, right? Because one of the practices that I've been engaged in learning through you is dedicating an asana practice to that person that you got into a fight with after the practice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
sure. Yeah, we'll talk more about like practices to do. So this is basically this is all the setup. This is how, for the three most important things that Buddha says we should learn if we want to be like that, if we want to reach the state beyond suffering, if we want to stop the wheel, if we want to stop the cycle, we got to get these three things. So this is the big one, because the real one that this is like I don't know, I'm a Star Wars geek. Anybody like Star Wars? This is the one that when Luke's at the the Death Star, this is the one that when he shoots it, it goes in and blows the whole thing up. Getting this, because it short circuits the whole mechanism by which we perpetuate suffering. It's like the center of the wheel, and the center of the wheel of life, that picture that we talked about before, is ignorance, right? Misunderstanding how things work, liking things ignorantly, which is like, I think they have some good quality out there, so I'm going to try to get it no matter how I have to, or ignorant disliking. This person's unpleasant, so I'm going to scream at them, right? So by uprooting those three, you actually pull the wheel off the hub altogether, and it unravels. But this is all the setup, and we'll talk more about like practices. But that's exactly right. Even our thoughts count and are doing that. So maybe we'll have a little discussion, and then or maybe one or three questions, and then or sharing, and then we'll just try to set up for next time the homework situation and all that. Did you want to say something?
Yeah. Does Buddhism leave room for chaos?
What do you mean?
Sort of the idea that I've studied a non-dual path.
Yeah.
So what that says is half the time I'll get it right, but that's two sides of a third thing. And I see echoes of that in Buddhism, but I think they would call that sort of the path to oneness. It's like the third thing that puts you in that flow.
Yeah.
So it's just asking if they ever address something like that, because sometimes it seems like some things are out of your control, but then it's like, okay, now it's like my relationship to it, how I react to it, but there is still a chaotic nature to it that you may not have any control over.
Right. Yeah. I don't know that I completely understand, but I think I do. And my best understanding of what I've learned is that part of, what makes samsara, suffering, is that, and we'll talk about the three kinds of suffering, the three kind of like levels of it in samsara, but one of them is that everything is unpredictable. We never know what's coming down the pike, So it's kind of like we almost live with this fearful anticipation. I get that. I don't know if you feel this. Like my parents are older now, and I don't know. This is kind of depressing, but I feel like it's a good example. Every time my dad calls, and my mom's been sick lately, I really just think somebody's gonna die. It's gonna be somebody died, or somebody's sick or getting worse, and it's not actually untrue to think that, because I don't know. So it's like we're all in this kind of fear about what's coming next, and at any given moment it could be anything, So I don't know if I really answered your question, but I think what you said is how you relate to it is important, and I would say that's what we talked about with the example of how do we want to be. Yeah, stuff is going to happen, right? And until we're not experiencing it as suffering, which would be that state of enlightenment, we will. So I guess the middle, right? If here is Buddha-ness and here is not, right? The middle is how do we react to all the stuff that happens?
Yeah.
How do we engage with the world that seems imperfect, that seems unjust, and that seems painful?
I now understand why my partner chews on his pens all the time. It's a chew toy to him. What do you say? I'll be quiet now.
That's great.
The Buddha is omniscient and can see everything, so they wouldn't experience chaos. Right? I mean, so my understanding of what you're saying, so there wouldn't be chaos in their perception because they see all time and space.
That's what it seems. I felt like I was feeling. It seems like Buddhism takes a slightly different perspective than the path that the path that I was taking, but it still gets you to the same place.
Yeah. I guess I'm not like totally sure I understand what you mean by chaos, but
when I heard his comment, like when he said chaos, I immediately like translated to samsara. But I think what Jane is saying is that if it's a perception thing, then what is chaos may not be perceived as chaos by the perceiver. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that after enlightenment it wouldn't be perceived as chaos anymore.
Right. So then there is no chaos because the chaos itself is subject to the perception.
Yeah.
It's empty. It's
Yeah.
like a pen.
yeah, I think you
Unless
guys are
chaos just means the unpredictability, the constant change of absolutely everything.
right.
Right?
Yeah, chaos, I
Like,
guess, doesn't have to
universe
mean
is chaos,
suffering.
right?
Right.
Or whatever. So
Sure.
it depends, I don't know.
No, I think you guys are all right on. It's important to say, and I mean, this is like the whole core through all of the 18 courses is the last path that we talked about and getting into it to deeper and deeper levels. But it's just important to say, yeah, maybe there's no chaos, but according to who? So we don't want to fall off the extreme of saying there isn't chaos or there is chaos because it's the dependently arising thing, right? It depends on the mind that's perceiving it. But let's save that for next time.
No,
Maybe you guys
that's a
are,
good question.
yeah. Maybe you guys are inspired now to come back, hopefully. I think it would be nice to hand in the homeworks and get them graded and all that stuff if you guys want to take it seriously like that. If anybody would volunteer to grade, that would be great, and you can just tell me later or email me. There's an answer key and you just basically say yes or no. So do the reading. You should have the reading and you should have the homework, and you should have enough to do the homework. I didn't talk very much. Reading one, you just got reading one. And so read that, and you should have enough information to do homework one. And if you don't get anything, just leave it blank. And we'll do a little quiz at the beginning of next class on the material from this class. Yeah?
Anthony and I were right there. We didn't receive a binder. Is it possible we could...
Okay, so I'm going to give you all a website, because we don't have any more binders. But all of this material in the binder is available for free. By the way, if you got a binder, and you can afford it, I think they were like $15 each with all the printing and everything. So if you wouldn't mind leaving it in a jar, and if you can't, it's on me, gift from me to you. But if you can, if you take a binder and you want to make a donation, we'd appreciate that. And if you already made a donation, great, that's fine. But just to recoup what we printed. Anyway, it's ACI Dharma, DHARMA .org. ACIDharma.org. And you can go to the left, it says formal study courses online. You'll see courses 1 through 18. Click on course 1. You can download the cover, the readings, all the material, absolutely free. It's all there. And you'll see, maybe next time I'll talk a little bit about lineage. I wanted to cover that tonight, and I feel like it's important, but we ran out of time, so we'll do it next time. But we'll do the mandala offering, and then we'll do a dedication, which is also in the beginning. So I think it says dedication. First we'll do the sashi. Is this one? So you can get another shot at the mudra. Middle fingers. And then take your index fingers and go like that. So you're hooking the index fingers around the middle finger.
Wait,
No.
the opposite.
I'm so confused.
So,
Wait, say.
okay, start like this. Excuse me. Okay. Cross
the
them.
middle fingers. Oh,
Now point. So you're
Yes.
or like this. Better. I didn't have to do that. Sorry. Okay. You go like this and cross them. Okay. Now hook your index finger around. So right index finger goes over your left middle finger, and the opposite. Left middle, your left index goes like this. Now put your ring fingers up like this.
I feel the click.
Yeah. Now cross your pinkies. It's because we did all that studying. Yeah, the pinkies cross. Now take your thumbs and touch the pinkies. See? It reminds me of one of those things where you're just like 1, 2, 3, 4. You're gonna marry whoever. Anyway. Okay.
What is the purpose, like, of a mudra?
There are lots of different mudras for different things, and I'm not so versed in it. But in this case, like I said at the beginning, we're making a representation of a mandala or a purified world. So when we're offering, okay, I'll give a little. This is good. I'll give a little explanation. So what we're offering is to the highest part of our mind, the highest thing that we conceive of, which in Buddhism is an enlightened being, whatever form that takes for you, and you can make that enlightened being look and sound however to your own mind. But you're offering a purified reality to the idea of enlightenment. And you could even think of it as you're really offering it to your own mind, because if it's what we said is true, that everything is just a filter through our own mind, how we think and how we speak and how we act. All we're really doing is saying enlightenment is important to me. Right? I want to turn my mind towards enlightenment. I would like to transform my mind and my experience of reality towards enlightenment. So it's not like you're offering to some big man in the sky or some man with a bump on his head or some external thing. But think about it like this. The highest thing that you can conceptualize, you're elevating in your own mind. Okay? So you can just think of anything you like, music, TV shows, flowers, incense, whatever. You can use the literal thing or just anything good in your mind, and just imagine offering it to the highest part of yourself for the sake of everybody. May everybody be happy, may everybody be free, okay? And may we, each of us, be a part of that process, okay? And I'll do the Tibetan. If you want to chant along, you can. Sashi Puki Jukshin Metok Cham Rirav Lingshin Yende Gempadi Sangye Shingdu Mikte Uwagi Jokun Namdak Shingla Chupa Shok Iram Guru Ratna Mandala Kamne Atayami. And now we'll do the dedication prayer, which is basically all the positive energy, all of the positive information that we've thought about, that we've discussed, all the goodness of us being here together, all the goodness of everything we've done tonight, we're going to dedicate towards enlightenment for everybody. May everybody reach enlightenment, each one of us, and be a force of good in our world and shift our world for the better. Gewa di kewo kun Sunam yeshe tsokzok shin Sunam yeshe lejong wei Dampa kunyi topa sho. Thank you so much. Great questions, great discussion. I hope you all enjoyed it and got something out of it. And we'll do it at the same time next week, Wednesday, 7 to 9. And it might seem like a drag to revive homework in your life at this point, but I found that it really helped me learn it. So if you can do it, they're not long, they're not hard, and you might just find that like, wow, something clicked. And the idea, remember, is not just to cram our mind with information that we won't use, but hopefully so that it sinks in and this becomes a part of us and influences us for the better. Okay? Thank you. Have a good night.